Good morning, good evening, good night, wherever you are in the world. Welcome, welcome, welcome. My name's Dan Latto, and great to have you with us today. So my name's Dan. I've been investing in property for 17 years. I've done quite well. I'm 43 years of age and originally from Leeds. I actually live in the UK now. Sorry, in Spain now even. But I go back to the UK every so often. I've got 2 young kids there that I see every other weekend. But I'm here today just to help you go through how you can do something similar if that's what you want to do and you want to be financially free. And let's face it, who couldn't do with some more cash right now? Then that's what I'm here to help you with. So when I first started, which is about 17 years ago, there was no help, there was no Google Hangouts, there was no YouTube. You just made it up as you went along, basically. And obviously now you don't need to do that. You can just join Marina and I for a hangout. There's loads of information, there's loads of books and so on. But I broke it down to just 3 single areas. And so the first area I wanted to talk about today, the first one was about cutting your costs. Because what I found is when I deal with clients is that they have no idea how much money we're spending. So if you're making $1,500 a month, how much money do you spend? Well, I don't know. Well, how do you know if you're going to be able to save any money, or even if you're going to get to the end of the month and have any money left? And most people don't know that. So the first one, always, the first part of making wealth is to start watching how much money you actually spend. The second bit here is when you know what you're spending, you need to find a way of earning more money. So number 2 is about generating cash. Now, I've had 2 jobs. You know, I used to work 40 hours a week in one job, and then I'd go and work at William Hill up in Leeds and do another 20 hours a week at William Hill. So I was doing 60 hours. And I'd always done that. I'd always generated more cash until I started working in my own business. And then that cash that you're then generating, so the difference between what you're spending and the amount that you're earning, that difference right there can then go on to rule number 3, which is about investing into something that's going to generate more cash. And for me, it was property. And so I started 17 years ago. I'm 43 now, so I started when I was 26. And from the age of 26 to 30, the generating more cash bit came from actually getting a better job every time. So I actually went from £15,000 a year at age 26 to just under £100,000 a year by the age of 30, which I think is pretty phenomenal, right? And I did it by not staying in the same job and not being comfortable in the same job. And it was a sales position. And I just went out and got better and better jobs and ended up working at Dell, which is phenomenal. And then by the age of 30, I retired, whatever retired actually means. I didn't have any kids then, so you don't need as much money. Oh, I've got 3 children now, so that soon changes, doesn't it? So if you've got kids, you'll know how expensive that can be. But from 26 to 30, went from 15,000 to 100,000, and that difference is what I then started investing in property. Marina, have you got any questions that you'd like to jump in with?
Wow, Daniel, it's such a privilege to have you here. And I'm delighted for our listeners because I know they're in for a treat. I know we are going to pull out all the stops and you are going to give them a couple of green lights. And I can't wait. I have pen and paper. Let's go.
Perfect. I mean, when we drill down into those 3 steps, literally those 3 steps are all you need. So, for example, if you're watching this right now, if you're watching one of the recordings or you're listening on the podcast, you've got to start getting yourself a spreadsheet. And it's a very painful process. And it's a process that a lot of people, they know they should do it, but they end up not doing it because it's painful. Going down all the expenses that you've got. I mean, what happens? Let's pick a number. Let's say £2,000 per month, or dollars, or whatever that is, euros, whatever currency you live in. Let's say it's £2,000 a month, okay? And that's how much money you actually take home. But let's also say that when you go down the spreadsheet and you're itemizing each individual cost, coffee, tea, rent, mortgage, electricity, gas, water, council tax, TV license, broadband, telephone, whatever that happens to be, what happens if that amount is 2,200? And actually understanding and going through and realizing that you're spending more money than you're making is a really painful process. Marina, that's why most people really don't do it, because it's so painful. But what I say to people is if you can just go through that and forget the pain, just put that to one side. Because trust me, if that's painful, knowing that you're spending more money than you're earning, there's a much bigger pain that's about to come, which is when you go bust. Because that can be quite painful as well, having spoken to people who've gone bankrupt and so on, because they're spending too much money. So it can be a painful process. And it's not the sexy part of investing at all, but it's absolutely the most vital part. It's more important than generating cash, because we all know people who can generate a lot of money, but they still don't have any money. They've got no wealth. If we take Mayweather, the boxer, who just last year won, I think it was £3 million on a boxing match. He'll have spent that by now. And he spends it because he's not curtailed his expenditure. He's not got any discipline about the money that he spends. But it's really, really important. It doesn't matter how much money you make. It depends on how much money you spend. But let's talk about the second bit, because that's what everybody wants to know. How do you make more money? Well, there's lots and lots of ways of making more money. Like, just break it down, absolute bottom line. You can go out of your house now and you can go knocking on people's doors and you can say to them, do you need your grass cutting? Like, we're moving into summer now. Do you need your grass cutting? Can I wash your car for £3? And you might think, I'm not doing that for £3. But let's say you've got, let's say a credit card bill and that's £900. Okay, so at £3, you need to go and wash 300 cars. Now that might sound like a lot, but let's do the maths, keep it easy. Let's say that you could wash 30 cars in a day. Within 10 days, you could pay off your credit card bill. And you might be saying, well, I can't wash 30 cars in a day, maybe 10 days. Well, that's great. That's just triple the amount of time. In 30 days, at £3 a car, at 10 cars per day, you could pay off your credit card bill. And that's phenomenal. And that helps on rule number 1, doesn't it? But then also, what if you could employ a friend and pay them £1.50 for each car that they wash, and you then actually make £1.50 for each car that somebody else washes? Now, you see, you can employ as many people as you like. You could employ 10 of those people if you can get people to work for that sort of money. Obviously, you've got to watch minimum wage and you've got to stay legal and get insurance. But then you're starting to create a business, you see. And this is where it all begins. It all begins through starting a business, or like I did, getting a second job. And people, I mean, I remember my dad, I was 26 and my dad would say to me, oh, you know, you shouldn't be working so hard. And I was like, look, if I'm 26 and I can't work as hard as I am now, what happens when I'm 50? And I need to work harder because I didn't do it now. And so we end up being full of excuses. I know people who are 50, 55, and they're working 16-hour weeks. And that's great, by the way, if they're doing what they love. But these people are doing it not because they want to do it. They do it because they've got no choice. And working hard and generating cash, that will give you a choice later on, but only if you then do number 3. So number 3 was, can you remember what it was, Marina? Testing you now.
Yes, I'm writing down here a couple of things.
I moved pretty fast, so I apologize, but I've got a lot to say as always. So
yes, no, you have to back me up.
So number 3 is investing the rest. So we cut costs, we generate cash, and the bit that's in the middle there, we move that over to some sort of investment. So for me, for example, that was buying real estate, property. And from the age of 20 to the age of 26, I got a piece of paper and I wrote those numbers down, and I could not understand, why were people not investing in property? I couldn't understand it. It was a no-brainer. And I spoke to estate agents and they would talk about rental properties, and they didn't buy property either. And all my friends told me not to do it. My mum and dad told me not to do it. A friend of mine said, don't buy property. A friend of mine did that, and they stapled pizza boxes in the front room and ruined it. And I was like, pizza boxes in the front room doesn't really ruin a house. All you've got to do is you take the pizza boxes down, pull out the staples, replaster it, you pay someone to do that, repaint it. That costs you £500–600. So that's not a house ruined. And I thought, your fears are unwarranted. I mean, I know we all have fears, but those fears really are unwarranted. And so when my first house I bought for £40,000, 17 years ago, it's worth £170,000 now. It brings in £1,200 a month. The mortgage on that is about 100 grand. So I actually make quite a lot of money, cash flow each and every month. And so if I'm 43 now and I'm making 1,200 on that, how much money do you think I might make in 10 years, 15 years, 20 years? And maybe I pay off the mortgage and then I can wrap that into some sort of trust or a limited company. Then I can pass that on to my children and my children's children and my children's 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 children. Because that asset that I went and bought 17 years ago is mine. And I can pass that on and I can do whatever I want with that. You can't do that with pensions, because as soon as you die, your pension ends. And so that's the beauty of starting to buy into assets. But I know people, and they come into money, 20, 30, 40,000 pounds. What do? They buy a big screen TV, they buy a big car, and within 5 years, the car that they bought for 30 grand is worth 10 or 15. Whereas actually the house that they bought for maybe 100 or 120, that would be worth 150 or 180 and so on. And so this is the difference between those people that are wealthy over the long term. You see, I hear all this thing, especially right now, you know, the Europe and England, United Kingdom leaving Europe. Who cares? It makes no difference. What's important is your own, your own financial economy. The financial economy of the United Kingdom is irrelevant. The financial economy of the US is irrelevant. The only thing that's relevant is your own financial economy. And so you take care of that. You take care of your family, you take care of business, and you do that by going out and earning more money, cutting your costs, and investing that money into long-term assets. And it can be anything. If you want to go out and buy a Ferrari, then you can do that. I would suggest you don't buy it. You lease it for £1,000 a month. But before you do that, you find a way of generating £1,000 a month for every single year, for every single month, for every single year, for the rest of your life. And then you can have as many Ferraris as you want. You know, one a month for the rest of your life, because the money that's coming in from your asset will pay for that. The asset or the car that you've bought won't depreciate. It just, you know, you just swap it out and you get another one next year, because your assets that are generating the cash flow, your assets that are going up in value, that's the stuff that you should be investing your money in. People get it wrong. But they try and work too hard at looking rich, buying the Audi TT, apologies if you've got an Audi TT, buy the nice jewelry, the nice house that they live in, so it's not an asset, it's not generating any cash, the big screen TV, the Xbox One, all the latest gadgets, exotic holidays. They spend all their money on that stuff and then find themselves at age 65, I can't afford to retire. They have to work till the age of 70 or 72 or 75 or whatever age it's likely to be.
Daniel, some people are
yeah, go ahead.
Really hard to become the president of America at this age. So I think age is not the issue. I think the main question, I had this from a couple of our listeners before, is who creates the money in a way that we create a relationship with them? Is the man creating the money or the money creating the man?
So it's interesting because they go hand in hand, actually. So what happens is, and this is why the mindset is the most important aspect. So if you've got only £300 in your bank account, take the £300 out and put it in your pocket, okay? And just walk around with it in your pocket. Because what happens is, when you go into the shops and you look at a £300 pair of shoes, for example, which is a crazy price for a pair of shoes, but just looking at them and go try them on. Because what's happening here is you can make a decision to buy those shoes if you wanted to, but you're not going to, because I don't want you to spend that £300. That's your last money. But I want you to experience it being in your pocket and going to try on a £300 pair of shoes, because the difference that it makes up here mentally in your head is tremendous. And you do that for a week or 2 weeks or 3 weeks, you'll start to see the world in a different light. And what happens is that your self-worth is usually attached to money. This is the problem. So, for example, if you're depressed right now, and a lot of people are, and they say, I'm feeling depressed. If you had £1 million in your bank account, do you think you'd still be depressed? Now, if the answer is yes, then it could be that you need some medical help from a doctor. That's fine. But if the answer is no, then actually you're not depressed. It's just that you're not happy with your current situation. And so that current situation has to change. But if you're feeling down and you have low self-worth, you find it really difficult to be able to do anything, because just even getting out of bed for some people is too much, because it's like, well, what's the point? Nothing works. And so we go all the way back to taking little victories. So filling in the spreadsheet with how much money you spend each month and just saving a couple of pounds every month can make a massive, massive difference. Just slowly paying off your credit cards and so on. So does the money come first or does the mindset come first? Really, the mindset comes first. But when your mindset starts to improve, you have to also, at the same time, start to increase your money. So everybody focuses on money. Nobody focuses on their self. And as soon as you start focusing on you, and so when you wake up, what's the first thing do you say to yourself? Do you say to yourself, oh, not another day at work? And if you do say that, why not flip it around? Like, so we're going to do something right now. So if you're watching this right now, like I'm sat in my chair, and my body language is, I'm sort of crunched down a little bit, but let's just change our physiology. So let's sit up, look, straighten my shirt. You see how I'm straightening the shirt? Instantly. Can you guys feel that? Can you feel the energy now coming from your chest? My shoulders are higher. Do you feel that as well, Marina?
Absolutely.
So there's a massive difference coming from that. So now, if I say to myself, right, what I'm going to do is I'm going to be a property sourcer, for example. It's one of the things that we teach at my website. Let me give you my website address, by the way. So my website is www.daniellatto.co.uk, www.daniellatto.co.uk. We help people, clients, become a property sourcer. And so to become a property sourcer, one of the things you can do is drop 10,000 leaflets. I've got a podcast, Marina, and I think it's podcast 2 or 3. And in that podcast, it shows people that how to drop 50,000 leaflets costing no money at all, which is amazing, right? And we've done it. So we know it can be done. So we've done it. And so when people go, oh, no, you can't do that. Well, you can, because we've done it. And the podcast will tell you how to do it. You can find it from the website.
Brilliant. So Daniel, most of our listeners who are entrepreneurs, people who already wrote a book, people who got the passion, they identify their true worth in one way or the other, and yet they can't deliver the service they are able to deliver into the world. They are facing challenges like lack of cash flow, or confidence, or all the breaks somebody will face when they're ready to go. And I know the investment, to me, investment is the only business that will ever deliver for you.
Yeah.
So it's not you delivering something for the business of investment in property, is the investment who delivers for you. For me, is another person. And I'm coming here to another point where creating your relationship with money, just to touch on what you said a few minutes ago. You see, you have a relationship with yourself, you have a relationship with your family, with your wife, with your husband, with your children, with your friends, and everything in between. What about your relationship with money? Because the way you treat money is the way money are going to treat you.
Yeah.
And many times during my events, one of the modules is wealth. Wealth being a state of mind, and then we talk about relationships with money. And don't be surprised when money will leave you, will drop you like nothing, and go to somebody else who value them more.
Yeah, absolutely.
Your wife can leave you, or your husband could leave you, and you are feeling the victim.
Yeah.
The point is that you have to create that relationship knowing that is a two-way street.
Yeah, totally. You know, when we talk about relationships, you see, you know, when we go to like relationship counseling or something like that, and what's happening is you're focusing on the relationship itself. And I actually think that's the wrong thing to focus on. What you should be focusing on, and I'm talking about with your partner, not money, right? But you'll see where I'm going with this in a minute. And so what you should really be focusing on is not your relationship with that partner. What you should be focusing on is the value that you're providing that partner.
Absolutely.
For us fellas, okay, and I'm guilty of this as well, Marina. Have you done the washing up? Have you done the ironing? I mean, we've got a cleaner, by the way, and it's one of the things I highly recommend people do, get a cleaner for the ironing and so on. But is the house tidy? When was the last time you bought your partner flowers, for example? And ladies, you can buy men flowers too. Don't be worried about that. But it's about adding value to the other person. And then if you think about that, if you're always adding value to the other person, do you think they might feel loved? Absolutely. And do you think they then might start to add value to you? Absolutely. And so do you think that relationship, that's the consequence of you adding value? And so people focus on relationship, don't do that. Focus on the value that you give. The relationship will take care of itself. Now, it's the same with money. If you're adding value to your clients, and I get this, there's two issues here. The first one is that you haven't got enough clients. For most people, that's the problem. I'm going to talk about that in a second. And then the second thing is to be able to monetize enough in terms of what they do. And you've got to be able to offer top-notch value. Because if you're offering value like everybody else, let's take smoking and you want to stop smoking, like how many hypnotherapists are there out there that can help you stop smoking? Like millions, okay? But in the UK, there's only one guy that you want to see, and that's Alan Carr, because he's the guy with the book. And he's done talk shows and radio shows, he's been on TV and so on, right? And the only difference between him and everybody else down here is that he's built credibility. And people don't build enough credibility in the marketplace. So for example, how do you build credibility? Well, you've got your podcast and your Google Hangout show. I've got an iTunes #1 podcast. It was a new and noteworthy. We have tens of thousands of downloads. We've had 50,000 downloads on our video channel. We've been on TV, we've been on the radio. And so we're working our way up this credibility pyramid, as we call it. Whereas everybody else is just at the bottom. Now, if you can start to build that credibility for your clients whilst adding value, it's pretty impossible to fail. So if you're watching this and you want new clients, there's two things I'd highly, highly recommend. And you're either watching it or listening to it right now. The first one is podcasts. You know, we started our podcast show in June last year, so not even 12 months yet. And the amount of leads that we've generated from the podcast show has been phenomenal, simply because of the podcast show. Now, it's not just about generating leads, because that's building awareness. You have to build credibility. And when we get guests to come onto our podcast, we get social credibility. Because that person is an expert, we get their credibility sort of put onto us as well, because we're the interviewer. Does that make sense?
Total sense. And it is something that it is available to you and me and to each one of our listeners equally. And you know, I remember those days when I first bought my very first property, and I paid a very small amount, simply because it was like $100 or something, but because everybody else thought that there is no need to buy bricks and mortar.
Yeah.
I always had this passion for bricks and mortar, not because of the money that, you know, and the outcome of investing. It was because I was looking at things in a different way, because I realized that I don't necessarily need to work for my business. I have to let or allow the business to work for me. Yeah. And this is what property investment does, is the one type of business that doesn't require you to work.
Yeah.
So of course you have to set it up, you have to take care of the spreadsheets and all the small stuff. But was that considering that in 10 years, if you invest now in England, for example, forget the past. Past is not your destiny. If you invest right now in England, you buy a very low price property somewhere up in the north, or somewhere, you know, where you could still buy something for 60,000, 70,000.
Yeah.
So what is that going to change in your mind? To start to change your mindset.
Well,
to start with, yes, it's going to prove to you that it's all possible. Yeah, so I know that sometimes people think, you know, it's not for me. I don't have what it takes. And I'm telling you now, if I can, you can. There is nothing you can't do. And impossible doesn't exist. Doesn't matter your strategy. It's all about you becoming your strategic self. You deciding to move with the flow, to listen to what's happening into the marketplace, and have a long or short strategy. It's entirely up to you. For me, it's buy to hold. For other people, it's just flipping. For other people, it's totally different. For me, certain countries. For other people, it'll be other parts of the world. So it's not even relevant. Wherever you are, you could go now, today, and find a property, put your name on it, and see what happens. Over to you, Daniel.
So there's two things I want to say, actually. The first one is about confidence, and then I'm going to talk about properties and that sort of thing. But I just want to cover confidence because it's one of the words that you used earlier. So confidence comes from two places, okay? So if you think about driving a car, for example, and most people watching this, I assume, can drive a car. But there was a time when you couldn't drive a car, okay? And so you were very unconfident, but now most people are confident. Well, where does confidence come from? Two places. The first one is knowledge. Have you gone and learned how to drive a car? And the answer is yes. Well, having seen some people on the roads, I would be suspicious if they've actually passed their driving test. But for most people, they understand how to drive a car. But that's not just where confidence comes from. So where else does it come from? Experience. Have you had the experience of driving a car? So when you first pass your test, you're feeling unconfident. You know how to do it, but you've not got the experience. And it's exactly the same with property investing. If you've never bought property and you've never read up on property, then no wonder you're feeling unconfident, because one, you haven't got the knowledge, and two, you haven't got the experience. So what do? First of all, download the podcasts, read the books, watch the webinars and the hangouts and everything else on YouTube, right? Go to events, learn. So now you're starting to get the knowledge, but you still haven't got the experience because you've not bought your first. And so when we take clients on board and we help clients buy properties, usually in the Northeast, but always below market value, and I'll explain what that means in a minute, but we want them to go out and buy their first 50 grand property quickly and easily, to show them how easy it is and how quickly they can do it. And in fact, our first deal, the guy signed up for coaching. Within 8 hours, we found him his first property, and that property was 20% off, which is phenomenal, right? So we're picking up properties in the Northeast. You know, we might find a 50 grand house. We've just done one for a client, a 50 grand house, and we're buying it for £40,000. That's a 20% below market value. So if you wanted to put that back on the market, you might need to clean it up a little bit, paint it, put some carpets in, make it look nice. You could put that back on the market and start making some money almost instantly. Okay, so we've actually got clients doing that right now. So if you want to flip it, that's great. If you want to hold it, because I'm a buy and hold investor as well, been doing it for 17 years. I went through a period of flipping properties because I ran out of money. So I needed more money. So what do you do when you need more money? Well, you buy properties and you sell them. You make 20 grand a time and you make more money that way, right? So because eventually you can always run out of money. Even with £1 trillion, you soon run out of money buying properties. So you've always got to have a mechanism to recharge that cash flow, if you like. But so we're getting access to these deals that are literally 20, 25% off. The best deal I ever did was 48% off its market value. And the couple were going through a divorce. And I actually felt bad about getting this property so cheap, right? It's almost half price. But you know what, Marina? If I'd not bought this couple going through this divorce, I think one of them would be sort of dead right now, because they were going to kill each other. Do you know what I mean? So although I felt a little bit guilty getting a 50% discount, I probably ended up saving these couples' lives, because they were literally ripping shreds out of each other. The property had holes in the wall and doors were hanging off, and it was quite a violent situation, I think. So luckily we bought the property. We bought it in 10 days, believe it or not, because we just wanted to get the deal through as quick as we could so that this couple could move on. And so this is the key when you're buying stuff below market value, is to make sure that you're providing value. We're back to value again, aren't we? You know, when we talked about your relationship with money, the more value. So for example, if we're dropping leaflets and we get someone and they're saying, can you help me? I'm going to be bankrupt next week. I've got a court date a week on Friday and I'm desperate. I don't know what else to do. Well, if we go in and buy their property from them and stop them going bankrupt, yes, they've lost their property, but we've helped them offload that property because they can't afford the mortgage anyway. But we've also stopped that person from being bankrupt, because bankruptcy is an awful thing. Once you go bankrupt, it's very difficult to come back. But we were able to actually go to court on their behalf, explain to the judge that we can buy their property and pay down all the arrears, and you don't need to make them bankrupt. And so they were no longer bankrupt. And that's what I mean by adding value. It has to be a win-win situation when you're buying properties below market value. So it's got to be worthwhile for you, obviously, because that's why we're here. But it's also got to be worthwhile for them. We don't want to drill them down so they end up with nothing. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. And you see, there are circumstances in everyone's life when perhaps you are thinking, this is a dead end, there's nothing I can do about it. But if you change your thoughts, if you change the way you look at things, then you realize that actually you could turn that challenge into an opportunity.
Absolutely.
And this is when you become the opportunity, being able to provide a solution for those set of circumstances which nobody plans for them. Nobody wants to get divorced. Nobody wants to be in a, so close to bankruptcy. It's not something you plan for.
Yeah.
But simply by changing the way you look at things. And it's about you being able to understand that it's so much available out there, so much abundance. You just need to step in, and you need to take this journey. It's not a race, it's an actual journey. And each stepping stone is a small victory which will get you closer and closer to your big dream. And
Yeah, I agree.
personally, I understand why your service is so needed, and I understand the outcome for our listeners. And I always believed is a great idea. It's not something I do personally. I have a total different strategy, which is long term and requires me to be more patient.
Yeah.
And I can afford that. Because time is a commodity, and all depends what you want to do. I used to go and buy a whole development before it was built, and then I had to pay every single week a large amount of money, and that was fine. That is another strategy. And I know that on the Chinese market, right now, because they can't take money out of China more than 30,000 a year, they have to embrace that strategy. So for me, it's something I've done it so many times, more than hundred of times. So this is where my craft works really well. But if you look at the market, and you don't really need to, of course you need to go through that process of getting the license, getting the confidence, getting the experience, getting the knowledge, being passionate about it, because otherwise there's no point. However, I'm thinking that this license to abundance could be actually something totally different than you and I are doing. So the wheel wasn't invented when it comes to property. There are so many. You just need to become creative. You just need to look at things with a fresh pair of eyes, and ask yourself, how on earth I can change myself? Because once you change yourself, you change your circumstances. You change the way you see things. And to me, it's always about what you want. I think that spreadsheet you mentioned at the beginning of these conversations is a great tool to help you identify what you want, because once you know how much you spend, you know you want to make enough money to cover that and never run out of money, never run into debt. And unless you know how much you spend, how much it's costing you, unless you measure everything, you can't make progress. You can't say, I'm going to earn 10 times more, at least 10 times more than I need, unless you know how much you need. So it's all coming down to what is that you want. So, okay, it's financial freedom you want. You want to get out of struggles. You want to turn all these brakes into fast lane, driving on the fast lane. However, measure it and learn what is that you want. Nobody can do that for you. Nobody knows yourself better than yourself. Nobody knows what is in your head. So people could come to you or to me and say, help me, but it's not, I can't help them, and nobody can help you. Only you can help yourself, deciding, putting pen on paper and deciding what is that you want and what is the time frame you allow yourself. So some people want instant results, and I am personally obsessed by fast results. But because I put in place what I want, I know exactly what I want, and I know how long it's going to take. I just need to buy time. That's all I have to do, because I know the outcome. I know it's happening. I know it's sometimes, because I'm so obsessed by fast results, sometimes I'm thinking, but I know why. So you see, so knowing what you want is the very first step.
I would agree.
And you have to set your strategy and reinvent your life, reinvent yourself, create a new strategy. If what is out there doesn't serve you, create a new strategy, become your best creative engineer, because your mind is not a software, is not a hard drive, but it is your own.
Yeah.
There is nobody between yourself and your mind. There is nobody to tell you what to do or who to be. And you see, when you become the cause of your life, you cannot be the victim of other people's decisions. And when you take decisions, don't be afraid to take them. Take them as they come. They come to you for a reason, for a great reason. Like any dream. That dream won't come to you unless you got your name on it.
Yeah.
You just need to embrace it, to turn that challenge into your greatest opportunity. And you become the opportunity for other people, because without knowing, you start serving other people. You start serving that niche on the market that really, really needs your solution, like they need your solution. You created a phenomenal solution for people who want to move fast and leave their past behind where it belongs and make the best of right now. Focusing on right now, what is in front of you right now is perhaps life, because that's why the present is called the present, because it is great gift of life. So what's happening at the present, Daniel? What is happening in your life? And it's so exciting that you can't wait to tell our listeners.
So it's interesting. There's a ton of things I'm going to talk about that in 1 second, Marina, but there's a couple of things I want to just extend to you. Before you write the spreadsheet with all the numbers, and you've touched on this, but it's actually designing your destiny. What do you want your future life to look like? And you get a piece of paper and you write it down exactly what you want that to look like. And that's where the dream begins. It begins on a sheet of paper. Now, some people think it begins in the head, which it does, but then you've got to get it down onto paper. Too many people keep it in their head without committing it onto a piece of paper. And I don't know why it works like this, but something happens when you put pen to paper.
Actually, there are 7,000 parts of your body that contribute to you putting things on paper. That's why.
Wow, that's phenomenal. So, whereas just thinking about it, I'm guessing there's far less.
Yes.
Right. So that's the first thing. The second thing is, if you're stuck in a problem, and what happens when you're stuck in a problem? So let's say you've broken down and your car's not working. It's outside the house, it's just not working. And you run a thought process saying, my car's not working. And then you run it again, my car's not working. And then you run it again, and you're running the same thought process again and again and again. So you're not having new ideas, you're just rerunning the same idea again and again, which is why you're getting the same result all the time. So the way in which we get around that is to focus on what's not the problem. What isn't the problem? Well, what's not the problem? Well, my car's broken down, but that's the problem. What is not the problem? Well, my health is good, my relationship's good, I'm starting to earn some income now. Oh, to heck with it. Let's just go buy a new car. Whatever, right? It's about not focusing on the problem, to start getting fresh ideas into your head. Because as soon as you start focusing on that problem, you're like that little rabbit caught in the headlamps that can't move left or right to escape the oncoming car. Does that make sense? So it's about...
Yes, total sense. So you are so right, Daniel. It's always... people are thinking, I don't know, most people, and I know our listeners, they've been through a long series of broadcasting so far, and I'm sure they dropped that already. But most people will focus on what they don't have, which doesn't even make sense. How can you think of what you don't have? Why don't you think of what you already have? Your health, your smile, which doesn't cost you anything. It's just that the way we've been creating, because we've been creating to die.
Yeah.
But we've been creating, we've been given this lifetime. That's all we got right now. I don't know what's tomorrow, and personally, I don't care. What I care is that right now I'm sharing with you great ideas for our listeners, and we are serving the world. That's all that matters to me.
Yeah. You know, interestingly,
everything else doesn't get my focus. My focus goes right here, right now. I'm learning, I'm sharing. I never thought I could teach, because teaching is not coming from the heart. But I think when you share, you give out everything you've been through. And by sharing is contagious. And if you put your focus on what you have right now, you don't need to worry about anything else, because that is that energy goes into waste, and that is killing your dream.
Yeah. You know, it's interesting.
So focus on what you already have. Yes, over to you, Daniel.
Something as simple as a smile can change somebody's life.
Definitely.
Something as simple and it costs nothing as a smile literally can change somebody else's life. And you don't know what the people are going through that you meet on your day-to-day. You know, your homeless person sat down, you've got no money for him, but just a smile can make his day, and it makes all the difference. So the other thing I wanted to talk about is property is really forgiving. So you can make a lot of mistakes in property. And also there's so many different ways, and you've touched on this, there's so many ways of making money, from flipping, lease options, rent to rent. You can help people sell their property through an assisted sale. But also then going back to that spreadsheet on, you know, if you need 2,000 a month, and I wrote down some numbers earlier. So 2,000 a month could be 20 people at £100 per month. So if you can sell something for £100 per month, perhaps coaching, for 20 people a month, there's your 2,000. Or maybe you've got a product at £10, so you just got to sell 200 of those every month, okay? So that could be a membership site, for example, £10 a month, you just get 200 people onto your membership site, there you go, there's your £2,000 a month. Or maybe you go work for someone as a consultant for £2,000 a month, there's your £2,000, and you work 20 hours a month. So there's lots of different ways in which you can do it, you know. It's just about sitting back and working out and designing what you want in life. So in terms of what we've got going on right now, I mean, we've got our podcast, that's incredibly popular. We've done very well on that, which was really cool. So I live in Spain, and I'm at the villa now. The beach is about 100 meters away. We had a barbecue yesterday. It was like 25 degrees, absolutely beautiful. For a guy who lives in Leeds, every day is sunny. I mean, it's just phenomenal. And so I'm very happy about that. Very excited about living here in Spain. In addition to the podcast, however, we've started doing more Facebook Live. So when people say, I don't know how to get more leads, well, podcasting costs very, very little. Facebook Live costs nothing. Google Hangouts, doing something like this, costs zero money to set up, which is wonderful. So if you've got customers or you're wanting customers, all you have to do is go on a Google Hangout, go on Facebook Live and start adding value. And then you're going to start creating awareness, and then you're going to start building credibility. And so that's exactly what we're doing. Our awareness is going through the roof. We're getting people asking to come on to podcasts and that sort of thing, and that's very exciting. Some really big names in the UK and in America wanting to come on the podcast. It's amazing. Who would have guessed that 12 months ago, you know? And the podcasts don't cost that much money. Like less than £20 a month. I mean, literally, it's so cheap, it's ridiculous, okay? So then, you know, the Facebook Live stuff's really interesting. And then we take whatever we do on Facebook Live, you know, a program like this, we upload it to YouTube, we take that YouTube video, we then embed it onto our website, and then we drive traffic back to the website. When they're on the website, a pop-up comes up saying, would you like to download the podcast? And people are entering their email address. And so they're then into our sales funnel. I mean, right there in the last 2 minutes, that's a sales funnel end to end. That's exactly what we do. That's so important to implement into your own business. And that sales funnel costs hardly any money. It costs £20 a month, maybe 30, something like that. So there's so much you can do to start generating cash, to start building awareness and credibility for your business, so that you can move that money then into buying assets and investments, things that will start buying more money. And so that's what we're focusing on here. We're taking on a lot of clients at the moment who are really keen on working out how to save money, how to generate more cash, and how to start investing the rest. And we're very, very successful at what we do. We've got lots of great testimonials and reviews that are all on the website from people, you know, that were changing people's lives. We've got one lady, and she's bought 3 properties. She's covered, in those 3 properties, she makes £1,300 a month. So she covers her own mortgage, her car payment, and all her grocery payments and electricity bills and so on. So in other words, those 3 properties have covered all her bills. If she wanted to give up work, she could give up work. I mean, she doesn't want to. She's self-employed. She loves doing what she does. But that's what it can do for you. And that's really exciting for me. Imagine being able to help people like that. It's phenomenal, Marina. Honestly, it's like I'm blessed to be able to be in this position to just go and help people in such a way, you know? Oh, have we lost you? I'm not sure if we lost you there, Marina. I think we may have lost you, but it says live. So I'll keep going, shall I? Because if people are still watching this, we can still... Oh, are you there? No, I think I've lost you. I thought I heard you. So in terms of focusing on a solution to your business, you need to just go back then. What is it that you actually want? So grab a piece of paper, get a pen, write down what you want. And there's no point in just writing down small numbers. So if you're writing down £2,000 a month, why not change that and add a 0 onto the end? That's really scary for some people, by the way. It should be scary. That's the whole point. Because just settling for £2,000 a month isn't enough in my book. Why settle for £2,000 a month when you can have 20,000? And if you wrote down 5, add a 0 to the end and put 50,000. Because what happens is, we talked about your relationship with money. When you write 2,000 a month off, or just 5,000 a month, your mind works in such a way to just earn £2,000 or £5,000 a month. Or if you're doing adding the 0 onto the end of that and you're going for £50,000, your brain works completely differently. So look, Marina, I'd like to say thank you for inviting me on. It's been awesome. I've really enjoyed sharing this. If you want to get in touch with me and listen to the podcast, they're all free of charge. You can go to iTunes and just type my name, Daniel Latto, and you can find them that way. Or you can go and find my website, which is at daniellatto.co.uk. And I would love to hear back from you. If you've got any feedback, I'd love to hear that. But go ahead and download the podcast. If you want to talk to me about coaching and becoming a client, then you can find all that information out on the website as well. So Marina, just thank you very much. And thank you everybody for watching and listening. Take care.